I'm counting in my head. Hello and welcome to, what are we doing here? Let's see. We're doing LadderCast is what we're doing. Hello. I'm Gallagation. You can see me in your lower right-hand corner, and Wingnut is in the lower left. So we'll give him a shout-out.
That's me. We are doing LadderCast. It is our step into the casting / broadcasting / just having a lot of fun with StarCraft world. And basically what we're going to be doing is looking at some ladder games in the gold to platinum type level from the gold to platinum type level perspective. There's a lot of shows out there that include the professionals or professional casters that look at these games and they have an awesome perspective on them, but maybe there's a different perspective that an actual average player might have that will be interesting. So we're going to take a look at games from that perspective. We're just going to find some random games from some of the replay sites out there and check them out and go over them and see what we can figure out and do some learning and just some fun having. What do you think?
Fun having.
So right. We're going to go into a TVT first, and I think, Nick, you got some infos on that, huh?
That's right. So we've got a TVT queued up here, and Ehren said that we were doing some gold to platinum type games. Well, this one is all the way down in the Bronze League, which is fine. There's some really interesting things to be had in the Bronze League. This one, sometimes in the Bronze League you'll find that you get what's called a Smurf. And a Smurf is a person who deliberately lowers their ranking.
No,
so they can
no one would ever do that.
Never. They would never do that. Why would people want to have 100% win percentage?
I've definitely never had 19 wins in a row.
Never. So yeah, that's what a Smurf is. These people do not appear to be Smurfs. Maybe I'm wrong. But based on the things that we're seeing in this game, it doesn't necessarily look that way. So yeah, we're going to get into this game here in a second, I believe. And Aaron's going to introduce our players for us.
Yep, I'm going to do a countdown from 3 and start if you're ready at 0.
I am ready.
Alright, 3, 2, 1, and play. And we're, of course, at the faster speed. Starting off at our 2 o'clock position, we've got the Red Terran. His name is Mr. McNasty. He's going to be that guy. And down in the opposite position, we've got our Blue Terran, Winpots, I guess.
Winpots.
There's no I, it's Winpots.
Winpots?
Winpots.
Alright.
This is, of course, a TVT, so there will be a lot of posturing to begin with. There's going to be a lot of SCV making. They do make SCVs as Terran, right? They
do indeed. And it looks like WN Potts has started off the building first with his SCV, and McNasty's right behind him. Also putting his supply depot behind his mineral line. Interesting
placement for that supply depot. What exactly can you prevent by putting your supply depot behind the mineral line like that?
Well, you can prevent a surround from Zerglings if there were Zerglings in this game. Precious supply depot. You'll notice that Potts down there is actually doing a standard Terran wall off and has his barracks 20% done.
That's a quite early barracks, actually. That was, I believe, a 10 barracks.
Yeah, that looks about right.
Normally it's more standard to do a barracks around 12 or 14 if you're doing more of a standard build, and looks like...
Yeah, McNasty put down his at around 12, and then made his next SCV, so he's at 13.
We've got a gas coming from Winpots. And this map is definitely interesting from the Terran perspective, I think, because you can very easily build that command center like here, right on the cliff to the left of Winpot's barracks, or in the same position for the red Terran, and get some early double SCV production, and then move that command center out after it's become an orbital command to expand once you've got your units up and saturated main base.
So we've got a second barracks going down from McNasty. He sent a scout over, but it seems to have found its way into a little crevice, not being able to get into the wall.
He's trying to hide in the shadow of the cliff there.
Yep. In the production tab, we can see that he decided to make a second Marine finally. He kind of had an idle barracks there for a while.
It looks like McNasty's only deciding to put one guy in his early gas geyser and do nothing with his second barracks. It's sitting there very idle at the moment. Just taking up some free space.
Well, that one just finished, so he's got to remember that he has it. There it goes. Except he's supply blocked now.
McNasty just lost his SCV at the ramp of wind pots. He really tried to poke the front to see what he could see up there. Looks like Windpot's just got his orbital command done, and McNasty is opting for the mid-game orbital command.
Yep. McNasty realizes the error of his ways and put 2 more guys in that gas. Although for what, I'm not exactly sure yet, as he has nothing that he can use it for. Except for, well, I guess he's making that reactor now.
Those reactors do cost a little bit of gas, and looks like a Marine's going to come up Windpot's ramp to see what he's got there, and he's going to be met by 3 Marines and live a very short life.
Yep.
It's looking like the rally of both of McNasty's barracks are set to the area just outside of Windpot's base, so he's maybe thinking about some early Marine pressure, even though he's not making any currently. And sitting on
like he's
exactly
that
800 minerals.
Yep. So we've got 3 Reapers queued up at Windpot's barracks with the tech lab on it. And the first one is just now finishing. So we'll see what he does with that. Looks like he's letting it sit there.
I'm thinking he's going to do Reapers out of both. Yeah, I'm thinking more and more that this is not a Smurf game, because I would think at the gold and platinum level, usually you're not queuing up units as much as these guys are. He's also missing a lot of SCVs. I think it's been a good minute or two since Windpots has made an SCV.
Well, it's also good to keep in mind that we're at the 6-minute 30-second mark and we haven't broken 30 food.
This is true also. There's a good number of Marines amassing at McNasty's ramp. Looks like McNasty's opting for the no-wall turtle, I suppose. But it looks like just a whole lot of nothing at the moment. He's just stacking up some Reapers here. He's still continuously trying to have 2 queued.
McNasty just started his combat shield. He's going to try and get that up to give his Marines a little bit more health as he's going only Marine. Although he does have factory putting... Oh, never mind. He canceled his reactor and decided to put a tech lab down instead.
Both players are now putting down their expansion command center in almost exactly the same location. It's as if they almost want to fly them to the opposite mains, both here and here. And I'm guessing it's Windpots that just scanned the 12 o'clock position, because he actually doesn't know where his opponent is. If we look at the vision, he has vision of only himself and has actually scanned both of the other mains where the other player is not, which actually this one at 6 o'clock, it's not possible to spawn there on this map. Or I'm sorry, actually the one at 12 o'clock, it's not possible to spawn on this map. The 6 and 3 are the 2 possible spawn locations.
Well, by the process of elimination, he can figure out where his opponent is, theoretically, unless he thinks that he can spawn in the expansions in the top left and bottom right corners.
And while Windpots is sitting with plenty of supply, double what his current army is, McNasty was supply blocked just until recently at 35.
Windpots is getting scanned. I'm not entirely sure if he got the sight on those Reapers with that scan, because they were hopping down right as that dropped. Windpots is also getting his combat shield and his +1 infantry weapon, and McNasty is researching his siege. But here come the Reapers, and they took a couple of shots at that barracks. Now he's going for the reactor.
Definitely favor going for that reactor. I'm glad he changed his mind there.
Yep.
He needs to make up some mind.
Next target. Yeah. Looks like SCVs it is. Now gas. Sees the army coming in, and he's going to run off to the abyss.
Of course, McNasty did the smart thing and hit all of his SCVs. It's always a good idea to pull your workers out, but it's also a good idea to put them back to work. Once the danger is gone, go back to work.
Threat is over. All right, they go back to work.
There we go. And in the meantime, McNasty is just loving his trust fund. He's sitting at almost 1,200 minerals at the moment, and he has now 2 orbital commands with half energy on both and not producing SCVs out of either one.
Winpots is just sending his lifted command center. It looks like he is going to go to that other main base.
I am nearly clairvoyant.
We see another starport going down from Winpots as well. He's making some tanks. Has stopped all Reaper production, it looks like. Actually, all barracks production whatsoever. So 2 medevacs have just popped for him. And those Reapers are still kind of just idling on that raised platform outside of his opponent's base. Scanning again to see what's going on.
Now, I guess...
looks like we've got some movement. I don't know if he's just repositioning to protect his new expansion.
At this point, I mean, taking in mind that this is a bronze level game, we see a largely Marine, a few Marauder, and a tank army with siege from McNasty, and a 1 tank, 2 medevac, several Marine army from Winpots. So right now the army supply is definitely in favor of McNasty at 51 versus 40.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think of where either of these guys should go from this, and I'm at a little bit of loss.
Reapers just got loaded up into a medevac because apparently they weren't mobile enough to begin with. He didn't like his positioning on jumping up that cliff, so he's going to go around the back with them.
I'm failing to see where that is. Where's that medevac?
That's going
up
there
to
the
it
top
is. He's
right
hiding.
corner, and it's just chilling.
He is hiding way up there.
Wants to make sure he does not get scanned, no matter where he puts that thing.
Do not scan me, bro.
Right? And he's also walling off his main with some supply depots. I'm sorry, not his main, his second main, his expansion, with supply depots to just make sure that there's a small hindrance.
Of course, queued because he doesn't need that 200 extra minerals right now.
Right.
He also just rallied his SCVs at the second main. They were just sitting by the command center. It has not yet become an orbital command, so he cannot use the Indomules.
One thing I have noticed during this game is that McNasty seems to have a better comprehension of how rally points work. You'll see that his entire army is kind of set up at his ramp, and if you look back at Winpot's base, he's just kind of got units wherever they spawn. He finally moved that tank over by his barracks by the front, but they're just kind of running around wherever they want.
The barracks are indeed rallied. None of the starports are rallied. The factory is not rallied. The second set of barracks are rallied to a separate location. And McNasty is once again supply blocked. And I'm not seeing that he notices it because he does not have a supply depot in production. He does
just
now.
Put 2 down.
He does now.
Yeah, he queued him up. So that medevac is still just kind of chilling in the top right corner there. Not really do. Oh, now it's moving. Oh.
And take a break.
Alright, so
his Reapers are heavy.
Now, is it possible to land up on this?
I don't believe it is. This is kind of an off-limits area as far as landing, because otherwise, like, if you could, it would be kind of imbalanced towards Terran to drop siege tanks up here, because there used to be a couple maps like that in the ladder, and they actually took those out or made those areas unlandable. And he's coming in right now with those Reapers. He's going to land them right on top of the SCVs. How much damage is he going to be able to do?
It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, roughly 8. He did pull the mineral SCVs out, but he did not get the gas ones out. Now and his army is now running back in.
From this perspective, I'm actually liking the medevac just kind of as a backup, because here comes the whole army, and his exit path is kind of cut off, and he was able to load back up into that medevac and escape. Because last time he came back across and he lost several of those Reapers just trying to run out. Because he has not got the nitro packs upgrade as far as
That's true. Well, it looks like he's actually invested in Reapers some, and he's just now, or I'm sorry, not Reapers, Banshees, and he's getting the cloaking field upgrade. And now he's getting ready to do another drop, our Winpots is, where McNasty is just very satisfied to kind of keep his army positioned in his base with only 1 tank sieged.
Yeah, let's keep in mind we are a good bit into this game here. I actually have my clock turned off for some reason, so I don't actually know what time. Oh, we're at the 17-minute mark, and we're at 82 food. So definitely not the most elite production in the world. And let's look at our vision. McNasty has only vision of his base, and he does have a guy on the central watchtower in the center. And Windpots also has only vision of his base and his second main, where he has several units. So neither of which are doing a whole lot of scouting. Of course, that medevac is still up there on the right.
And he's also positioned 2 Banshees on the bottom right. So it looks like he could easily attack either base at this point, based on his somewhat positioning, I suppose. Oh, and there goes the medevac.
I'd like to see one thing I definitely see in these lower level games. I'm pretty convinced that these are actually bronze level players now, with McNasty at almost 3K in the bank and Windpots at 1,400. I mean, that's almost a 200 army of Marines right there.
Now the McNasty's army is just now moving in to deal with those 3 Reapers or 4 Reapers, and he gets them loaded up, but he does not get them out of there.
And look at the amount of damage those Reapers do to that army with that stim. No medevacs, and they all stimmed to kill only 1 Reaper, I believe, and they're all at now a quarter less health.
Well, he does have 2 medevacs that have a decent amount of energy, but he hasn't moved them towards his army, and those Banshees are now engaging. They've already cloaked themselves.
Of course, he has.
He's going after.
Oh, there's the scan with no units. So now he can indeed see the Banshees.
The units have not moved in. The units are there.
And
he's just going to go to the high ground.
For as long as those Banshees sat there, they do both have half energy, so they can stay cloaked for quite some time. And there's the stim and scan, and one of them went down, but the other did not.
And there's another SCV down, and he's focusing down the reactor on the starport that's not producing anything. Presumably because that's the only thing that he can hit right now, based on where he's at. Stimming, trying to run in there, but cannot get any range on that medevac.
2 more Banshees are on their way over from Windpot's main base. He's also produced a Viking and has a medevac full of Marines still. And that's the end of the game.
That's the game. McNasty has decided to throw in the towel despite having a 20 food lead.
Alright, well, that was an interesting game indeed. That being sort of a joke. What we see here is just 2 players, I think, if we look at it from the level of play that they're at. We have 2 players that are not comfortable with the game at all. And that's pretty evident in the fact that they didn't engage each other at all throughout the entire game. The only way that Windpots engaged McNasty was with first Reapers up his cliff, then he dropped Reapers from the medevac, and then cloaked Banshees. That was the only engagement that those armies saw at all. And also, McNasty basically just turtled at his natural and at his ramp, which of course left his back open, but he didn't move out anywhere.
That's right. Windpots, I feel like actually was a little bit more comfortable, I'd say, based on the amount of times that he moved out. Especially with, at least he was comfortable with his harass units. He made Reapers, did drops, made Banshees, got cloaked, so he did a lot with just your harassment units. If you look back at his base, he really doesn't have a whole lot of traditional army, although I do like his unit diversity. He's got, at the end of the game, he's got a Viking for, I have no idea why, a couple of medevacs, Marauders, Siege Tank, Marines. He's got a lot of different types of units, which, if used correctly, can be very powerful. Although it looks like he used most of them for defense here. McNasty, to be honest, looks like he has a very formidable force, but he just didn't ever feel comfortable moving out with it.
Which he should have felt totally comfortable, because if he would have used those siege tanks along with those Marines, I think he had a couple medevacs somewhere. Yeah, he does have 2 medevacs sitting there. He would have been very able to siege his opponent's base. Now, just before those Banshees came in, it looks like 13 SCVs to 30, which is interesting because I thought he would have had a whole lot more from that. But if we look at the units lost tab, Terran did definitely lose double the resources of units of Terran. McNasty definitely did lose double the resources of units as Windpots. Yeah. But I don't know, I'm just not. The thing I want to wrap my mind around with this game is what gets in your head that when you're a bronze level player you just don't feel comfortable at all moving out of your base.
Well, McNasty lost 34 workers over the course of that game, which is not a fun position to be in. You typically do want to turtle in that situation, having been there myself, losing that many of your basic units. You really want to protect what you can make. It didn't look like he was really replenishing them, however, at least not nearly as quickly as he possibly could. But the problem was his positioning. He kept all his units at the top of his ramp that was neither protecting his mains mineral line nor his expansion mineral line. And so he had to run when he saw he was being attacked at either location, and his reaction time simply wasn't as good as it needed to be in order to deal with those.
The big point where where McNasty lost most of his SCVs was when those Reapers were dropped the second time from that medevac, because right before it was pretty even in SCVs, 25 to 28, and once those Reapers come in, he loses about half of them, and then when the Banshees come in from the other side, he loses the other half. So that's really what happens there. So they were fairly even. It's just, just looking at McNasty's army, I think they just really need to. I'm trying to find a good way to wrap the end of this game, and it's just a mess. But I think they both need to get more comfortable with poking each other's bases, because I really think if McNasty would have taken this army and brought it over and sieged up a tank here and a tank here, and maybe even a little farther away, here and here. I know you can't see, Nick, but I'm pointing right outside of Windpots' ramp up, straight up over the cliff. And then done a scan, he could easily take out a supply depot here, some of these units that are sitting around, and the front of Windpots' base is so cluttered, it would be really hard for him to get out, to be honest. So, I mean, it looks pretty clear that would have been the best thing to do, and I really don't think Windpots had a chance at any juncture of the game, just with his composition, and it also looked like he did not have as good of a grasp on the game, to be honest.
Right, but I do think that he did feel comfortable poking. He was the only one to make any sort of attack the entire game, and I think that's what won him the game. He was comfortable with some aggression. Now, granted, it was very limited and with somewhat quote-unquote cheesy type units when you use them exclusively, but he poked, he ran in there, he did damage, and he wasn't afraid to do it necessarily. He even got stuff out. He had a decent idea of when was the best time to run as opposed to engage, and granted, he did lose those Reapers in a medevac towards the end of that game. That was more due to, not paying attention to where that medevac ended up. He thought he was safe on top of that cliff and ended up not being safe there, so the Marines were able to take it out. But I felt like in terms of poking, Windpots was probably a lot more comfortable, obviously a lot more comfortable than McNasty, and I would argue that he was not uncomfortable poking.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that one definitely came down to he harassed him to death. Mm-hmm. And McNasty didn't make any. He made a good army, but he didn't make any sort of harassment. And more, I really think that it really secures your position in the game if you can at least harass in some way. Terran obviously has several options with the Reapers, the Banshees, drops. Drops are totally annoying, especially if you can pull off a dual prong drop or drop in the back while you attack in the front. They're just, very strong things that can pin you in your base, and I think that's really the big thing. McNasty was just pinned in his base by the threat of the Reapers, the Banshees, etc.
Yep. I think that about wraps up that game. I mean, we can keep talking about how one person needed to move out while the other person continued to attack all day, but it is what it is,
Indeed, and I think it's, definitely a low-level game, so there's just really not a whole lot to say other than there's just a lot of things that need to be looked at, and I think we mentioned a lot of them. So if you want to, can you give us a stream check here real quick?
Yep, I'm working on it right now.
As soon as we make this happen a little more, get to be regular, maybe we'll have some people that tune in and can type in chat and stream's cool, guys, just keep it going.
It does look like it's working fine. The audio's looking good, and
on our
looking good.
This is still LadderCast beta, so we're not promising this to be perfect. We're still figuring out exactly how we want to work out the show in our beta. I guess you'd consider that alpha. We had some big audio problems, which hopefully we fixed in this episode. But we are trying to get this organized and going the best we can here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to load up this PVZ game, which is going to be our second game.
Yep.
See it loading up there. And I am at the 0 minute point. This is
Alright,
the
I am
map
there as well.
Court Hall Compound. And play. I'm going to do 3, 2, 1, play. You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, and play.
Great. Alright, so on our top right we have our Zerg player. His name is Wizard. He is blue. In the bottom left we have Bog, who is our Protoss player, who just gave a hearty have fun, good luck with a heart. Now I'm going to give you guys a spoiler in this game. I am of the opinion that these guys are Smurfs. And I believe that you'll see why as we start getting into more of the meat of this game. But it's actually kind of interesting. This is also a bronze level game. And it's interesting to find two Smurfs playing each other on the ladder, just hitting find match and matched up with each other.
So I'm expecting Forge Fast Expand here, especially with this pylon put out front. This is an awesome map for Forge Fast Expand, and you know, going along with what Nick was saying, I don't think you see many more. I would consider the Forge Fast Expand a more refined build. As I switch to the game view so we can see what's going on better, a more refined build that you wouldn't necessarily see on the low level of the ladder as much, just because it is more of a timing based and with the risk of pools and stuff. And yeah, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but yeah. So basically what I'm getting at is this is a great map for the Forge Fast Expand. I love it because there is a nice tight choke here, and where you put your pylon and you stick a forge here, and then a gateway here, a cannon here, and your cyber core here, and all your core buildings are protected. You can stick another pylon over here and another cannon, and do an emergency wall off if you need to, if you see that pool go down as it is right now, and those lings coming early.
Now, well, not actually early. That pool went down at 15 food, and the thing that you'll find interesting is that his gas actually went down at around 10 food, and he pulled people out of it because he got his 100 food for his speed long before his spawning pool was ever done. So he's still got one unit mining that gas geyser, presumably maybe for some banelings later on.
And I don't know if you were looking, but you probably saw that face. Mr. Bog definitely did not go along with anything I was saying as far as his building placement. He's going with the much wider area to do his lamp, and leaving a nice little space there too, so he's not even doing a complete wall off. So maybe it's not as high as we're thinking.
Maybe not.
But it looks like he does still have a live probe in Wizard's base, and I'm not sure if he's going to plop down a pylon here at Wizard's Natural, which is sort of common these days in PvZ, because the vision range of the hatch going down is so slim you can easily get some cannons up if they're not paying attention. He does throw down that pylon to block the hatch.
Well, lings are already there though, so it's going to go down. Yeah, it went down without being canceled.
Did not
relatively
get that canceled.
easily. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is if you go back to the Forge Fast Expand front there, the first cannon is only now going down. He's got 2 gateways in production, 2 pylons in the forge up there. No cannons yet.
He did do the Naniwa build and went Nexus first. But he does.
And we know how well that works for Naniwa in tournament scene.
Oh, and that cannon just finishes just in time to stop those lings from coming up. But I was talking about the Forge Fest Expand being a bit of a timing build, and you really want to get your gateway down as soon as you can, preferably right after your Nexus, and then put your Cyber Core down right afterwards so you can get that Warp Gate going, because that Warp Gate is probably the most important thing in the world to you at this point. but he definitely opted to put down that second gateway first, and I'm questioning that decision because he hasn't produced a single unit out of either of them.
That's true. So apparently my assessment of Smurfs was way off the ball. Is what it's looking like at this point anyway. That baneling nest is going down, however he is sitting at a healthy 260 gas at the moment.
That's plenty of banelings.
His expansion just finished, while Protoss has units mining at his expansion, so Protoss is actually ahead in the economy right now.
If we look at the units tab, Protoss has only 25 probes. However, he is completely walled off, so there's really not a whole lot that Zerg can do with those two cannons there. So I consider that pretty safe for now, but he really needs to get something going. But he is ahead economically at 28 probes to 22 probes for 22 drones for Wizard. So Wizard either needs to catch up on that economy, or Bog, even though he had a slower build, could pull ahead a little bit.
Now we see a bunch of lings at the southmost Zelnaga, and it looks like he's moving more leagues down there right now, presumably gearing up for an attack. And as you can see, Wizard also has an Overlord in the expansion area still, presumably because there are no units to deal with it.
Bog is definitely doing a decent job of keeping his chrono boost relatively low. His natural nexus is well utilized, while his main has almost, well, actually they're both being completely used. So he's chrono boosting his +1 upgrade right now, which is pretty common. But his warp gate is done, and both of his gateways, after sitting idle for so long, are now actually producing units and not able to be transformed.
The same thing can be said for Wizard's Queens. He's only put down 1 creep tumor, and they all have relatively low energy. Now the timing wasn't necessarily perfect on them, but he is staying between the 0 and 30 mark, it looks like.
So I'm just looking at the rallies for these hatches, and all
we got it. Now if you look down at the bottom, we've got an engagement going on right now. And look at those force fields just keeping the banelings from hitting anything.
Oh, and that
finally gets that forge down. But only because he ran out of force field energy.
If he would have kept microed those banelings a little bit better, and instead of running them right into that the pylon there, he could have got those in and potentially got them all the way to the mineral line with only those sentries with their tickle cannons.
Yeah, that's possible.
I'm wondering why I was looking at the rallies of the Nexus originally, which have all the worker rallies set to the natural but no unit rally. Obviously, as we see these lings pop out right next to the hatch. What I was wondering was why all these overlords are heading straight to the middle of the map, but now they're splitting.
Well, they have changed. The unit rally has changed to that Zelnaga tower, which is why those overlords are moving out.
The overlords originally were moving out before he changed the rally. Now it is set, like you said, and the lings are going right there. But it looks like Bog did decide to take out that overlord that's been scouting him for nearly 10 minutes.
And that will supply block Wizard.
Now, pretty much I'm going to say that Protoss has got the big advantage here right now, because Zerg always wants to be one base ahead of pretty much any other race except Zerg. And against the Forge Fast Expand, you almost want to throw down your third hatchery at about the 5 to 6 minute mark. Because Protoss is going to be pretty slow in getting up that aggression, and if you stay on 2 bases for too long, you're really going to have a hard time.
It looks like Wizard's just opting to try and do the brute force, try and make his way in. He did send out a single ling to try and scout that front, and Bog seems to have a sixth sense for what's happening. He doesn't have any eyes on the field, but he has plenty of sentries to force field off.
Here comes another round of banelings in the front. See what they can do.
And they all land.
Those force fields
go down to keep the lings out.
Those are some good force fields, but when you have all sentries against the Zergling army with a decent wall, what are you going to do?
Yep.
And it looks like he still has...
the force fields around that gateway to save it. That was pretty impressive.
He's definitely doing some things that would point to a little bit higher level play, like the use of sentries at all. You generally just don't see that too much in Bronze League. But yet we look at his money. He's got 2K in the bank, 1K gas, plenty of supply. Lots. He's definitely got all the pylons out there.
And his warp gates have their cooldown. He could warp out of any one of them at this point.
But yet the macro is what seems sort of bad. It looks like he's putting down a forge and 3 more gateways. I don't like that placement. I would have rather had them be in the main, but it looks like he's at a total of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 gateways now on 2 bases, which may be a little excessive.
Wizard has opted to do the if it works, or if it doesn't work twice, try it a third time. He's got Lings and Banelings down, going in for a third attack. I will mention that he did expand behind this one. He has put up his third. And more great force fields just holding off his buildings.
As we warp in 8 more sentries, so that's going to be enough force fields to hold this off just about indefinitely.
Right. And Wizard, realizing that this is a hopeless endeavor, retreats to try and rethink his strategy, or just reinforce maybe. I'm
just taking a quick look here at the units lost tab, which is pretty bleak for our Zerg buddy. He's lost 4,600 in resources worth of units, and Protoss has only lost around 800. And Protoss now has Storm going down with a large number of Templars. And if we look at the units tab, it's now 50 workers to 34. In Protoss's favor, and that's just a horrendous position for Zerg to be in.
Yeah. I really like the placement of these High Templars in Protoss's base. He's got them up on this cliff overlooking right where Zerg's been just throwing himself up against force fields. So he's going to be able to get down some really great storms if Wizard tries another assault like he's been doing.
He is chrono boosting his upgrades, which looks like +1/+1. Actually, that's interesting. When that forge was taken out before, his +1 upgrade hadn't finished yet. Definitely a delay on that.
Well, Wizard has finally gotten his lair at near the 16-minute mark. We'll see what he does with that. He's got 3 extractors that are all empty. He's only mining out of the one in his main base.
Yeah, Wizard's just not going to be able to pull this out. He's putting down a spire now with an economy that just can't support it.
Well, if he had gotten guys in those extractors sooner, he would have had a much higher gas count, and that would have served him a lot better as if that spire had popped maybe 5 minutes ago.
He's doing a good job of keeping Zerg at bay, and Zerg is doing a fairly decent job of keeping Protoss at his base. So, and I want to see those storms go down right now. But he's opting to not use the storms. That could have pretty much killed all his Lings.
He did a great job of trapping a decent pocket of Lings right in the corner there. He didn't throw down a storm, but he didn't really need to either. He's maybe just storing up his energy on those.
It looks like Zerg is actually catching up in the worker count. It's now 50 to 41, and he has 13 larvae currently, with plenty of money to spend. That could easily get him ahead in the worker count. It's now even at basically 50-50, and if he made another round of, say, 10 drones, he could jump ahead.
That spire is out. I do not see any mutas on the map, and none are building either. It looks like he's actually going for OV drop tech. That's what he's putting his money into. We see him put down a 4th and a 5th simultaneously, because apparently when you have a lot of money you expand, but it looks like Bog has actually decided to finally move out, and now all those overlords being by that Xel'Naga is not going well for Wizard. His supply has plummeted. He's now supply blocked.
And we also noticed that Bog has produced a warp prism, which is sitting at his base, and he also has the ability to make DTs, so I'm expecting some kind of DT warp prism warp in. We're just watching this army here. He does have blink on those stalkers, so it's easy for him to poke and run away, but not against these speedlings. The speedlings can actually eventually overtake him, even if he doesn't blink.
Well, if you'll notice, Wizard hasn't put down an evolution chamber the entire game, so those lings are still 0-0, and those stalkers are actually 1-2s. So it's no surprise that they are cutting through those Zerglings.
That was a decent attempt at blink micro. However, he was blink microing large groups at once. He would have been better off to pick 2 or 3 stalkers at once to blink them back. He could have probably lost a few less. Now, of course, he's found the 4th and 5th of Wizard and is going to dispatch those handily.
Yep, Boggs pretty much transitioned into entirely blink stalkers.
And why not when you're ahead in food 160 to 80?
Wizard decided to try and just attack the front, assuming that the entire army was gone, but all of those sentries and High Templars are still there, so he decided to run back to his base and try and play defense instead.
Which, unfortunately, that many Lings just can't play defense against that many Blink Stalkers. Especially with 2-2 upgrades.
Yeah, when you're looking at those upgrades. He's putting down an infestation pit, but it's going to be too little too late. That Spire has sat there for at least 3 or 4 minutes, not doing anything, and this looks like it's going to be the final engagement of
Boggs
this
doing
match.
a really good job of blink microing this time, where he's blinking some back and some forward, which is a good tactic.
I like the blink forward a lot, as he was able to get hits on the queen and get hits on that hatch as well, especially when you have that much of a lead over your opponent.
I mean, there's just nothing. That's actually, he just split his army 2 different ways. What is this? It's like we've got a something. I'm guessing that's not GG. I'm guessing it's something slightly more derogatory than that. But as we look back at this game, it's just comes down to Zerg was just behind in economy the entire game.
Well, and not getting the right upgrades either. He didn't get a single upgrade in that whole 20-minute game. And Zerglings do quite well against Stalkers if you've got the upgrades and you're not facing 50 of them. But if you can get the surround on those Stalkers and have your upgrades going, then they do some decent damage to those Stalkers.
I would definitely like to see Bog utilize his higher tech units a little more. He's got 7 sentries there, he's probably got almost 16 sentries total with full energy, 5 Templar with full energy.
Those Templar kind of moved to that position and didn't do anything for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it'd be better to have maybe 1 there just to storm the front, because 1 storm is going to be plenty to hold something off, but put 2 back here by the back of his main, and maybe 1 here and 1 here on either side of his natural to protect against the mutas or any other kind of drops that may come in, because that's probably your best defense as you're out with your mobile Blink Stalker army for home defense, so to speak. But and also being so ahead, I would have really liked to see him take this 3rd.
Absolutely. With Wizard, I commend the guy for trying that Baneling bust. I imagine that's worked for him quite a few times. But if it doesn't work the first time on a Forge Fast expand, you've just kind of got to give up the Ghost and focus back on economy. Obviously, make some units back at home to protect against the push. But you really want to get that 3rd up a lot sooner than the 15-minute mark.
It would have been nice to see that drop tech actually be used with those Banelings. That actually would have been quite good, because there's really nothing protecting his. Well, I guess there's 2 cannons there, so that kind of would have stifled that a bit. But there are no cannons at the natural, so he could have easily swung in along this right side here with a couple OVs and taken out.
Yep. And if he'd done enough of them, then he could have gotten a lot of those sentries. Well, assuming that Bog wasn't looking at his sentries to put up some of those more money force fields.
Sentries were protected by a couple cannons there, though, so he wouldn't have been able to get on top of them so easily.
Again, it depends on how many he ran in there with. He'd definitely lose some in the process, but
the thing that also would go against that is you would really need the +2 upgrade, because without that it takes almost 3 Banelings to kill a group of workers.
It's at least 2.
Yep. So that's that.
That's that.
We obviously looked at a couple really low-level games today. I think in the future we want to look at a little bit higher-level games, but we just kind of wanted to take something pretty straightforward to start out with, to introduce what we want to do and where we want to go with this. Obviously, you know, we just want to take some low to mid-range games and just watch them and see how people react to different situations and talk about it and go from there.
Yep.
I keep looking up because I have stuff on this monitor above me, but the camera is here in front of me, so I need to focus on staring straight ahead and not up. But so I believe that's a wrap on LadderCast for today. We this will be on our Twitch TV channel, the recording, and also it will be up on YouTube. It's youtube.com/WingNutStarcraft and twitch.tv/WingNutSC. You can follow Gallagher on Twitter at Gallagation and me at WingNutSC.
Yes, sir.
And,
so thanks for joining us for today, and we will see you next time on LadderCast.
Bye.